Welcome, everybody. It's Monday, coming off of a extremely exciting Sunday slate of action. We'll get into the game of the century, of the week, of the year, everything else with the Vikings and Bills. We'll get into that one first. Crunching the numbers here, and just so you know, our podcast here, our little podcast, Unexpected Points Podcast, is now in the top quartile of the top quartile of football analytics podcasts. So props to us on that one here. I'm also repping, if anyone's watching on YouTube, my Pro Football Reference t-shirt here, which I got over the weekend, a couple of Pro Football Reference t-shirts. The OG stats-based site, been extremely important to me, especially with all the historical information they have. I've scraped many a stat of their website, whether allowed or not, or whether encouraged or not from them, especially when I was putting together that quarterback GOAT series. So props to Sean Foreman and everyone else over there at Pro Football Reference. Still one of the best resources that I am checking constantly for data and information. But that's enough for the intro here. I know what you guys are here for. You're here for the games. You're here for the notes. You're here for the analytics. You're here for the adjusted score. So let's get into all that stuff right now. And we will start again with the game of the century of the week, the Vikings taking down the Buffalo Bills.
2nd and 10. Allen steps up and throws an interception. Patrick Peterson. And in this heavyweight bout, the Vikings with the knockout blow.
Yes. Patrick Peterson intercepts Josh Allen in the end zone in overtime, which means 0 points on that drive for the Bills, which means the field goal that the Vikings got in overtime holds up in this one. But that was just, one of roughly a billion plays in this game that seemed like they were hugely important, hugely impactful. And that goes straight into the number of the week here for this game, the number of the game, and that is 4 here. That is the number of plays with at least a 40% win probability swing in this game. 4 different plays. The win probability swung around more than 40%. So let's go over which plays we're talking about here, because I know we're probably all pretty familiar with all the big, huge plays that were going on at this point in time. But the biggest plays by win probability swing were fourth quarter, 1st and 10, Josh Allen fumbling it at the 1 yard line, fumbling the exchange, the handoff there. That was, at the time, Buffalo had a win probability of 95%, according to some pretty difficult win probability models to try to calculate all that stuff at the end of the game. It dropped to 19% after that. 19% is actually a little bit higher than I would have thought that it was, because most people thought that the game was over. But as we saw, Buffalo was able to secure that field goal and get it go ahead to go to overtime here. Another play here. Kirk Cousins up the middle, no gain. Official review, the play immediately preceding that, where they did not score 4th and 1 on the goal line. At that point in time, the Vikings had about a 65% chance, 65% chance before the play to win, and then it dropped to 5% after that. What other plays here? Another play here. Kirk Cousins, actually a deep pass to Justin Jefferson for 24 yards on 3rd and 10 in overtime. The huge 3rd and 10 conversion in overtime. Believe it or not, that was about a 40% win probability drop there. And then, of course, at the very end of the game, the Bills had about a 45% win probability. Boom, goes straight down to 0 when Gabe Davis when the pass to Gabe Davis is intercepted in the end zone by Patrick Peterson. And that doesn't even go over the Justin Jefferson 4th and 18 conversion for 32 yards, which it made a big difference. It made a big difference as far as win probability was concerned. It was very, very low because there's 2 minutes left, though, for the Vikings at that point. But it did not put them in a position to definitely take the lead, as they eventually did in this one. So huge, huge swings back and forth, which, of course, makes it the game of the year. Let's get into the particulars here. The Bills were 6.5-point favorites. So even though the Vikings were one defeat going into this game. 6.5-point favorites, a pretty big favorite for the Bills. Even though they lost last week, they're still seen as being the best team in the NFL, according to the numbers. They might even still be seen as being the best team in the NFL, according to the numbers going forward. 46.5 total on this game. Minnesota wins 33-30 in overtime. The adjusted score, though, 27-22 Buffalo. So this is one of the few, if not only, adjusted score for the week where it is pointing towards the team that lost this game. And the Vikings, you could say they have some sort of moxie this year. They have some sort of temperament that's pushing them forward. It's enabling them to win these games. They have the coaching from Kevin O'Connell, who I'm sure will be way up there in the coach of the year odds. You'll have all that stuff floating around. They've won, 7 or 8 straight one-score games. This is the 4th time this season they've been trailing with less than 3 minutes left in a game and then come back to win the game. But the big factor you can probably point to is they getting a little bit lucky, where they've been getting a little bit unlucky in the past. Now they're getting a little bit lucky. Hey, not bad for them, not bad for them though. So you had some poor luck in the past, and then you got some better luck right now. You can rack up these wins. You'll take them. You get you closer and closer towards potentially winning the NFC and having a chance to make it to the Super Bowl. Why not go ahead and take that on this one? And what's interesting is the Bills in this game. And again, we're having some problems here with Josh Allen and the turnovers, but the Bills in this game are about a 95th percentile for their success rate offensively, for their EPA per play offensively. Just a bunch of big plays did not go their way in this one, which ended up costing them the game. Ramifications on this one. Big time ramifications on this one. The Bills were sitting in the number 1 seed a week ago going into the playoffs. If it would start today, of course, we still got a decent amount of season left. Now they are down to 6th. So they fall from 1st to 6th. They are 3rd in the AFC East. They are now behind the Dolphins, who sit at 2nd place in the playoff hunt, and the Jets, who are 5th. So they're even below the Jets right now in their playoff seeding. And on the flip side of it, for Minnesota, if you look at the change in probabilities here for what's happening this week, Minnesota was already a 95% chance to make the playoffs, so it didn't really change. They go, they're 98, 99% now. They are 98% to win their division, which has gone up slightly. And if you look at their championship and Super Bowl odds, conference championship and Super Bowl odds, it's not bad. It's about 17% for the conference championship and 8% for the Super Bowl. Not a great team, I wouldn't say, this Vikings team, but now they're sitting at 4th in their Super Bowl odds, according to our numbers, behind Kansas City, who's now number 1. So that's the big flip here. Buffalo is number 2 now, behind Kansas City in their Super Bowl odds and their conference championship odds. But the Vikings sit at 4th, so not too bad, behind Kansas City, Philly, Buffalo. They are next in line, ahead of teams like the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Josh Allen. I don't know. How much do we have to worry about this or not? The fumbled handoff thing was a little bit weird. We mentioned last week that Josh Allen was leading the NFL in turnover-worthy plays. He had a couple more in this game, which ends up pushing him forward there. So not great, of course, as far as that's concerned. But I wouldn't get too upset, too up, too down for the Bills on this one. I think the loss is bad in that it affects all these things that we're talking about for potentially getting the bye in the playoffs in a stacked AFC. That is difficult. That is really the thing to worry about here. Are you worried about the fundamentals of the Bills' offense, things like that? No, I don't think so. Because like I said, they were highly, highly successful in this game. I mean, Josh Allen had 330 passing yards. He was averaging 7.7 yards per attempt in this one. Even the running game for this one, Josh Allen, again, 84 yards rushing, 175 yards on the ground on all these different plays they were making there. I mean, a lot of those are scrambles. They're not exactly the best rushing team when it comes to their design runs, but hey, good enough to get the job done on this one. And their defense, while their defense is probably showing some cracks here, I mean, Minnesota was not that generally successful. You had the extremely long run from Dalvin Cook. You had a bunch of receptions from Justin Jefferson. And don't get me wrong, Justin Jefferson's great, maybe the best receiver in the NFL if you want to say that, but he had 9 contested targets in this game. So out of the 15 targets that Justin Jefferson had, 9 of them were contested, and he made 7 catches in those contested catches. So those are plays generally, if you look by the numbers, the lowest probability for completions, the lowest probability for, run after catch and how much you're going to add to a play after the fact, of course, is when the target is contested. That's going to be the lowest thing on this one. So if you look just at contested targets in this game, Justin Jefferson had 162 receiving yards on contested targets in this game. 9 catches, 7 targets, 162 yards. I mean, that's just not going to happen a whole lot here. The Vikings had 175 total yards, so we sprinkle in some from Adam Thielen and TJ Hawkinson in contested receiving yards, whereas the Bills only had 50. You can't build an offense around contested catches. It can work for this game. Justin Jefferson is amazing. That 4th and 18 catch he had was the, catch of the year easily by far. Don't get me wrong on any of this, but the fundamentals for how we're viewing this team, like if you're going to go through power rankings or something like that, I'm sure the power ranking industrial complex here for all these different NFL media sites are going to flip around and they're going to have the Vikings above the Bills because of what we saw here. But no, let's not do that, people. Let's definitely not do that at all. The Bills are still better than the Vikings despite what happened in this game. All right, now that we're done with the game of the century of the week, let's get to more chronological sort of order here. We'll go first over to Berlin, the first game ever in Berlin, and Tom Brady, the GOAT, comes through with the victory against the surprisingly strong and division-leading Seattle Seahawks.
White swings in motion, empty backfield. Brady looks back to his right, goes to the left, it is caught! Touchdown Tampa Bay! Chris Godwin! Touchdown Buccaneers! We lead 20-3. Crowd roaring in Munich.
Yeah, there you go. Gene Deckerhoff. I got was able to find on Twitter the feed from the radio broadcast there. That's how you get the we lead. I love these. I love the Homer announcers that say we for these games, just dispensing with any sort of idea that this might be a impartial crew in this particular game. There's a lot of things to point to for why the Bucs won this, but I'm going to point to the number of the game being 0.2. And that was the run efficiency percentile in this game for the Seahawks. Kenneth Walker, 17 yards on 10 carries. They could not get anything going on the ground. And that's important because while Geno Smith has been the story, of course, for this team, his success, his high grading, the fact that he's a top 10 guy in efficiency and his grading so far this year, Kenneth Walker was like the 1B sort of story. He was definitely someone who was helping them salt away victories, win games at the end. Didn't have it in this one. Did not have it in this one. The Bucs defense, which had been struggling, which was in the bottom 10 of success rate against the run after being number 1 or number 2 in previous years, came back and played a lot better in this one here. And when we have the particulars of this game, Tampa Bay, 2.5-point favorites. They win 21-16 in this game. The adjusted score is a bit higher for both teams, 31-25 Tampa Bay, because of the high success rate these teams had. There were some missed field goals. There were some other plays that didn't come through. Seattle 1 for 9 on third down. They did not convert a third down until 3 minutes left in the third quarter. That was very, very important in the results of this game, whereas the Bucs were 10 for 16 on third down, making a huge difference there. What else would you say about this game? Well, you had this also extremely strange Leonard Fournette tossing it up to, you see TB12, you see him one-on-one coverage against Tariq Woolen, the fantastic Tariq Woolen, the Defensive Player Rookie of the Year candidate. You throw it up to him. That was a weird one there. It was actually the biggest play in expected points shift, almost 5 points lost on that one. But their win probability was very, very high, even at that point. It would have, closed out the game for them, but it went from 93% win probability down to 88. So not the biggest thing there. I don't think Geno played that poorly in this game, but it does hint to the fact of, it's still Geno, right? He's playing at a much, much higher level than we've ever seen him play for at the past, but there probably are going to be some hiccups along the way. He had a 68.4 grade in this game, so not horrible. He had a turnover-worthy play. Of course, he had the fumble, which is the turnover-worthy play, which was the second most impactful play of the game. And he also had the sacks. That's something that has been plaguing him a bit this year, is the fact that he's taking some big sacks in big spots and big moments. 3 sacks, 31 yards lost in this particular game. That ended up being very, very important. And on the flip side, when we talk about the struggles for Seattle rushing the ball, it was the opposite for Tampa Bay, a team that was bottom 5 in rushing efficiency and rushing success rate going into this one. In this one, 44 carries for 161 yards. Not great as far as the average is concerned there. I mean, some of that, actually, I should wipe out some of this because it's some knees that Tom Brady was taking because it has him down here for 6 carries for -3 yards. But still, a little bit over 4 yards a carry and able to convert very successfully. I think Chris Godwin looked like he was getting healthy. Of course, you had Mike Evans in there who was playing well and looking good. You had the Rashad White, Leonard Fournette combination that was finally working again. You had Julio Jones with a long touchdown on a semi-blown coverage there from Seattle. All those guys getting involved is going to be pretty huge for this team. This is why, I always saw them, the Bucs versus the Rams and the Packers, as being the team that's most likely to turn things around because they're able to get healthy on defense, play very, very well against a good offensive team, the Seahawks, and they have all these weapons that can get things going on offense. And Tom Brady, 22 of 29 in this game, 258 yards, not a lot of pass attempts because they ran the ball so well, but 8.9 yards per attempt. Has an efficiency in the 85th percentile. So not bad at all for the Bucs in this particular game. Let's go ahead and take a look at where they stand now for the playoff picture, because I think that's probably one of the more important things that we're talking about in this game. And the Bucs, not huge movement on their playoff probability. It did go up 10%. So, that's something. Their division chance to win the division went up 10%. Also, again, continuing to secure these victories. Not a great record, but the Falcons were still hanging around a little bit on this one. And on the flip side of things, the Seattle Seahawks, still have about 70% chance to make the playoffs. They only went down slightly because they were not favored in this game. But divisionally, with the 49ers winning, which of course we'll get to, they do fall 10% in their chance to win the division down to 34%. So they're going to have to hang in there and win some games down the stretch here, or else the division will be out of sorts for them. But they could probably still sneak in via the wild card in this game. All right, let's get to more of the morning slate here. I'm going to start with the rest of the morning slate. I know we already did the Minnesota-Buffalo game, the game of the century. I'm going to start in Miami because I think the Bills now, second seed. I'm not the Bills. The Dolphins now, second seed in the AFC. Important to watch what's going on with Tua time.
Tua, end zone, caught, Trent Sherfield, touchdown.
Tua with the dime to Trent Sherfield.
Another
there.
just perfectly thrown pass.
Had many successful
pass
drives
and the feet.
Game, and that brings us
doesn't
to
get any
which is
better
0.
than that. What a play.
0 is the number of punts that the Dolphins had in this game on all their drives. So they had 5 touchdowns. They had 2 field goals. They did have 1 turnover on downs, but even that turnover on downs was a failed 4th and 1 conversion where the Dolphins had 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 3 straight running plays, and they failed to convert on any of those 3 straight running plays. So, Not exactly like that was even one that they were struggling and couldn't get the conversion on this one. Not the case at all. It was one where they were able to move the ball consistently, effectively on the ground, through the air, everything that they wanted to do in this game. Miami was a 3.5-point favorite. Very wrong on my part, being a little bit high on the Browns' chances to actually win this game, or at least come close in this game. 49.5-point favorite, which is pretty high total in the year 2022 with so many teams struggling. And that just goes to show how much this Browns defense in particular has been struggling. And they showed all that in this game. 39-17 Miami, adjusted score 36-23. Nothing out of the ordinary between the adjusted score and what the actual score was on this one. And let's get to Tua time. So he had that pass to Sherfield that we talked about for the touchdown. And his overall numbers in this game are, he had a 92.5 passing grade, best passing grade of the week, 25 of 32, 0 sacks, 0 scrambles. So he's just like efficiently executing the offense. 3 big time throws, 3 touchdowns, no turnover-worthy plays, no drops in this offense too, which I think works towards his advantage. 8.9 yards per attempt in this one. And if you look at what he's doing, what's really amazing about this, like, again, I mentioned the no sacks, 2.3 average time to throw seconds, 2.3 seconds. He's 2.4 on the season, yet his ADOT on the season is the same. Well, okay, let me just step back for a second. So his time to throw, his average time to throw is the same exact thing. 2.4 last year, 2.4 this year. His average depth of target has jumped by over 2 yards. So that's Tyreek Hill, of course. That's the way the offense is working. That's the offensive line playing much, much better, giving him time to throw. He has the second lowest sack rate in the NFL behind Justin Herbert, a little bit higher than Justin Herbert, but right there in the NFL. But it's just executing this offense to perfection. And then we go, of course, to the rushing game. And Jeff Wilson Jr., acquired for a 5th-round pick, 119 yards on 17 carries and a touchdown. Raheem Mostert, 65 yards on 8 carries. You know, when your 2 top running backs are averaging 7-8 yards per carry, that's going to be pretty good there. I mean, Nick Chubb had a decent game here, 63 yards on 11 carries, didn't get enough carries, had a touchdown on there, had a long touchdown, but just not enough sustainability for the Browns offense. But the reality is, again, Dolphins offense never punts. You're not going to win many games when your opponent is never punting the entire time and only fails on a very 4th and inches type of play is the only failure. You're just not going to win. Just not going to win many games. You'll hear from the Browns news right now. You're going to hear that Deshaun Watson is back. He's practicing. He's going to start practicing today for the team. He's not eligible to come back until week 13. So the Browns' playoff chances, according to our numbers right now, is at 8%. Not so good. Can they hold on at all here? They're 3-6, right? Can they hold on coming off of a bye here? So you're hoping you can get this victory. They're 3-6 now. And before Watson gets back, they have the Bills and the Bucks. It's going to be tough not to be at best 4-7 with Watson coming back. And then you kind of just have to win out to make the playoffs in that scenario. Very possible, you know, they're 3-8 with Watson coming back. And then you're kind of just out of the playoffs. So with Jacoby Brissett and this defense, which is not doing so hot, the Browns are going to need to win one of these games against the Bills or the Bucks to really have a chance now to step forward and to make it into the playoffs. Miami, on the other hand, up to 90% chance to make the playoffs for us, 33% chance to win the division, which we have still slightly lower than the Bills. I know as of right now, they're above the Bills in their actual standing here, but we still have them as slightly lower just because of the team strength angle here. and because of the fact that going forward, the Bills have a pretty easy schedule, 23rd most difficult schedule. So bottom 10 strength of schedule going forward, whereas the Dolphins have the 8th hardest strength of schedule, which is going to be difficult for them. And MVP watch, Patrick Mahomes, number 1 in the MVP odds, according to DraftKings at plus 150. Jalen Hurts and Tua. So now Tua's tied with Jalen Hurts at plus 400. Josh Allen falls to 4th, plus 600. And then there are some other guys who are in the mix. Lamar Jackson plus 1,400. Joe Burrow, 25-1. Kirk Cousins, 30-1. Geno, 40-1. But it's basically those 4 guys that are in the mix right now. Tua moving all the way up, despite missing all these games, tied with Jalen Hurts right now. So I guess if he hadn't missed those games and maybe they pulled off a victory or two, maybe he'd be even higher in the MVP standings right now. Just keeps on going for Tua. We'll see how many capitulators there are on Tua. And speaking of capitulators on Tua, I'm going to talk to Steve Ruiz tomorrow, which will probably come out Wednesday morning, to talk quarterbacks, everything else. He's been getting pillared by Tuanon and everyone in Dolphins Twitter for weeks now because he refuses to move Tua too far up. I mean, he's moved him up, but I don't think he has him in the top 10 or anything like that right now. The results keep on coming in. So I'll question him on that. I'll get him Tuanon. I will pin him down and make him submit that Tua is maybe not just a game manager, low upside type of quarterback. All right, let's get to the next game in the morning here. We'll go to Kansas City. We'll go to the MVP favorite, Patrick Mahomes, facing the Jacksonville Jaguars. Our Jaguars, if I've dubbed them, for their analytical prowess. They kind of messed up on some analytic stuff here. They did have an onside kick, though, to start the game. Didn't matter. Still end up losing in Kansas City.
Here's a 1st and 10. Holmes going end zone. And it's a touchdown. It's Noah Gray.
Well, you talked last week. The big one.
Yeah. Noah Gray getting into the action here for the Kansas City Chiefs. And again, they win this game 27-17. So you look at it and optically, 10-point victory, not a huge win. They were 9.5-point favorites, but that goes to the number of the game, which gives even more context here, is 3. So the Jaguars were +3 in the turnover category in this game. 2 fumbles for the Chiefs and an interception. The interception was kind of late on, so it didn't really affect the outcome that much, but it did affect, again, the optics of what the score is for the Chiefs. And they recovered this onside kick at the beginning of the game. Didn't matter. They were basically +4, you could say, in the turnover department. If you count that onside kick recovery as a turnover, still could not win this game. Struggling offensively. And that's probably going to be the story again, is how Trevor Lawrence and that offense can't quite get going at the level that you would want to see them for them to be a real playoff contender this season. Kansas City was a 9.5-point favorite, so they scraped by for bettors on this one, 27-17. That goes way under on this one, only hitting 44 points on a 51.5 total. Adjusted score, 33-19 Kansas City, so even wider, much wider than, well, not much wider, but a little bit wider than what the actual score was in here. There was a pretty dominant performance for them in this game. Scary concussion there for Juju Smith-Schuster, which we'll see what ends up happening for how they open up the offense. But I'm not taking L's already, but, I was a little bit more skeptical of the Kadarius Toney pickup for Kansas City. Well, skeptical of whether he would be worth it, at least in the longer term. But, hey, he stepped in here, got to give credit where credit is due here. He didn't run a ton of routes. He ran 17 of 40 routes in this game. But if you think about it on a per route basis, and he's kind of like your per route guy. He's always the per route guy. He doesn't get a lot of routes, but he's on a per route basis. He always looks really, really good. 3.5 yards per route run, 5 targets on 17 routes, 4 catches for 57 yards, including a touchdown where he did hopping into the sideline. He had another double move where it could have been down the field a little bit more. So that would have been interesting because he kind of plays near the line of scrimmage. He had a 6.8 ADOT in this game, but it was really the one long pass and then a bunch of shorter passes for him. So he looks like he's going to contribute. he kind of helped fill in and take some of those snaps. But you still had Justin Watson taking a lot of snaps coming in for Juju Smith-Schuster. So I don't know exactly how involved Kadarius Toney is going to be going forward, but second highest rated receiver, highest rated wide receiver for the Chiefs in this game. Only below Travis Kelce as far as his rating here. I mean, great game for Mahomes, just spreading out the ball. 60 yards to MVS, 33 yards to Juju before he went down, 20 yards to Noah Gray, and that touchdown that I highlighted, 81 yards to Kelce, 57 yards to Kadarius Toney, 56 yards to Jerick McKinnon, just really using all of those different weapons in the offense. And then running the ball, Pacheco, Pacheco had the fumble, but 5.1 yards per carry. He's kind of 16 attempts, 82 yards, looking really, really good there. Kadarius Toney had a couple of rushing attempts for 33 yards. So another way that he's getting involved in the offense there. 155 yards rushing with Mahomes, having some key scrambles, 5 scrambles for him in this game, picking up a couple of first downs. One of the best scramblers, obviously, out there in the NFL. Let's get to Lawrence. Lawrence graded pretty well in this game. I don't know, man, because I just don't understand how you could go 29 for 40, which is okay. It's been making almost 2/3 of your receptions. 259 yards, only 6.5 yards per attempt. But he did have 3 big-time throws and no turnover-worthy plays. 5 sacks. Now, that's another one where, the grading does not hit these guys nearly as hard on the sacks as something like expected points added does. So he's getting almost an 85 grade in this game, despite the fact that he's taking 5 sacks. Whereas if you're going to look at his efficiency for this week, like where does it step up versus what we've seen him do earlier this season? Well, an EPA per play is flat. So it was basically not a positive game, not a negative game, but right in the middle for what he has done this season. A little bit of a negative game in EPA because he lost almost 7 expected points taking sacks in this game, which nets out all that he was doing positively there. Maybe the defense was just really, really good, and that's why we haven't graded well, because he needed to have these big-time throws. But I also think it's part of our grading, giving a little too much to the big-time throw, not taking away enough for the sacks. Jags, what are we going to do with the Jags now? So in our power ranking-based playoff calculation, Jags all the way down to 5% chance to make the playoffs. They're at 3-7 now. It's really just trying to build for next season at this point. They're going to have a bye this week. Try to get everything in order. Let's build. Let's try to build this passing game because it wasn't that bad. Christian Kirk got involved. Some other guys got involved. They'll have the bye. They'll come out of that. They'll have the Ravens, which would be a good test at home. Lions, Titans, Cowboys, Jets, Texans, Titans to end the season. So definitely some winnable games there. Basically no chance to get into the playoffs, but building towards hopefully getting that leap next year for the Jaguars. That's what they're playing for. It's the 2023 leap at this point, getting in position to potentially do that next season. I mentioned most of the Chiefs stuff before. As far as they're now a 95% chance to win the division, with the Chargers losing, 30% chance to make the Super Bowl, 17% chance to win the Super Bowl, right up there with anyone in the NFL. And our strength ratings, Buffalo was kind of in a tier by itself. Now it's really Buffalo and Kansas City are in the same tier here for being the strongest teams in the NFL based upon the results of what we've seen over the last couple of weeks. All right, let's go to Chicago, where Justin Fields is a story coming out of this one, the big story coming out of this one. Yet the Detroit Lions are able to come away with the victory, finally sacking Justin Fields and getting him down on the ground. So he couldn't escape at the end of the game.
Come back and bite him. Up the middle, in for the touchdown is Jamal Williams. His 9th rushing touchdown of the year, and the Lions are an extra point away from taking the late lead.
Yes. The Lions were down multiple scores here late in the game. We had the pick 6 from Jeffrey Okudah, a little Buckeye on Buckeye violence there that they end up scoring with. They get the ball back. They drive down the field. They're able to score the touchdown. and kick the extra point to win by a single point in this game. We all saw the big plays from Justin Fields, but I think this hints towards what is the number of the game for me. And, nobody's going to want to focus on this, but 11 is the number of the game. And that's because Jared Goff, good old Jared Goff, Jared Goof, as some of you guys like to disparage him with. Jared Goff, 11 more expected points added in this game than Justin Fields. Justin Fields had the huge run. Justin Fields had some good passing touchdowns. He made an escape at the goal line also on a play on 3rd and goal from the 1-yard line to score a touchdown. Had all the highlights here, but quietly, Jared Goff, making some plays. Maybe the Bears have the worst passing defense in the NFL after losing Roquan Smith or trading away Roquan Smith, not getting a pass rush anymore, no more Robert Quinn there. But hey, we're going to kill Goff when he stinks. Let's give him some credit when he's doing well, because he averaged, 9.1 yards per attempt in this game. Didn't throw a lot of passes, only 26 attempts for him, but that's a very, very healthy number. No interceptions, 2 sacks, but they were not very damaging sacks for Goff. And rushing was a little bit more of the key here, of course, but only 95 yards rushing for the Lions in this one. 258 yards rushing for the Bears. Monster number. 147 from Fields this week after having, 170 the week before. Let's get to the numbers here. The Bears were 3-point favorites in this one. They lose by a point. As I mentioned, the adjusted score has the Lions better, 28-24. And I just think that the question is going to be, here's the big picture thing. I don't want to focus too much on the details of this game, but the big picture thing, I think this is going to be the discussion around Justin Fields. I mentioned this a little bit last week when he had the huge rushing numbers, but he had 4.4 yards per attempt. This week, better, 8.3 yards per attempt. Yet he had the 3 sacks in this one. Even the touchdown that he scored near the goal line, he was about to get sacked. He probably could have got the ball out quickly to Mooney. There's a nice switch for the defensive back, so maybe he saw the switch. He didn't throw it out to Mooney. I still think he should have gotten it out there to Mooney really quickly, maybe set up a touchdown, or at least get really, really close and then have a chance to go for it on 4th down rather than risk taking a back-breaking sack there. Now, he was able to fight everyone off, get into the end zone, make that exciting play. Everyone goes, absolutely nuts watching this and looking at what had happened. What's the sustainability of this type of play is the question, right? That's going to be the question for Fields in this one. He had a fumble, which he did not lose. That could have been a little bit more troubling for him in this game. What is the sustainability of ripping off 60-yard runs every week and shaking off all these tacklers and scoring on the goal line, where he also had to run through 2 people on the goal line? I mean, he's a big dude, but I do think there might be some concerns about his durability too with this style of play as he continues to do so going forward. But again, I don't want to take away too much, but I want to just lean a little bit against the narrative for what type of breakout we're seeing from him this season. Definitely impressive, off the charts in comparison to what we were seeing from him before. At the same time, 3 sacks in this game, multiple other ones that he could have taken sacks where he shook them off in this game. Still maybe isn't the most sustainable passer, NFL level passer in this game. And we want to see more of that going forward because the Lions defense, ain't that hard to beat either. So excited. I think everyone's excited about what's going on with Fields. Just a little caveat to throw in there for what we're going on. Going forward. Not really any playoff ramifications in this game. Both of these teams are under 10% chance to make the playoffs. Bears are 1-2% at this point after losing a few in a row, despite Fields' breakout defensively. But again, setting things up, this is a 2023 type of situation for the Bears. Same thing that we saw with the Jaguars. 2023, that's what we're building for. That's what we're seeing from Fields. I want to see a little bit more in the passing game, though, for him and not get himself injured also down the stretch here. I love the big plays, but let's not get injured, Justin Fields. We want to see more of this in the future. Maybe we don't need 150 rushing yards every game. Maybe you can go for like 70, 80 every game or something like that and add a little bit more for what we're going to see passing the ball. All right, before we get to the rest of the morning slate, and then we'll go through the afternoon and all that stuff, let's pay some bills here. If you want to put a little action on these games, DraftKings is your place, the official sports betting partner of the NFL. Right now, new customers can make any $5 bet, get $200 in free bets if your team wins, plus stepped up same game parlays. Boost your winnings with DraftKings. One of those you can play every game day, all season long. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF to get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Just place a $5 bet on any football game, only at DraftKings Sportsbook, using code PFF. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. And Western and Southern is a sponsor, not the sponsor, a sponsor of the Unexpected Points podcast. While you focus on your roster moves, Western and Southern helps advance your money moves. Buying your first home, planning to start a family, wondering how to make your money grow. Western and Southern's playbook of life insurance, investment, and retirement solutions helps you rest assured on game day. Team up to understand needs and address goals with a game plan built just for you. Get started at westernsouthern.com/PFF. All right, let's move on through the morning here. Let's go to, it's not a lot going on in the morning here, but let's go to Pittsburgh against the Saints. A dominant performance by the Pittsburgh defense. Kenny Pickett gets a win here. The Steelers get TJ Watt back. A lot of positive vibes probably in Pittsburgh here. Can they make the playoffs? I don't know. We'll see.
Dalton takes a deep shot. Looking for White. And it's taken away. Picked off by Levi Wallace.
Yes, great defensive performance by the Steelers defense. That brings us to our number of the game, which is 6. So the Saints' offensive success rate was in the 6th percentile. Not good. Not good at all in this game. The Steelers win 20-10. They were 1-point favorites. I think I had this as a play this week. So at least I'm making some stuff here. They win 20-10. Adjusted score 25-14. So pretty close to what we saw in the score here. I don't want to spend a lot of time on these games when we have two teams who now have less than a 10% chance of making the playoffs, facing off against each other. But this is pretty much foregone time, I think, for the Saints with the Bucs victory and everything else that's going on here. I mean, we still have them with the 5% chance to win the division. So 1 out of 20 times, 1 out of 20 seasons, you play out everything that still has to go, and maybe they can end up winning the division and getting into it, but it's looking pretty low for a team that's continually going all in. Question might be, do we see Jameis again? I mean, 2 picks for Dalton in this one. We only had him graded for one of those being a turnover-worthy play. 6.4 yards per attempt, 17 of 27 for 174 yards in a game you were trailing most of the time. Not great. Couldn't rush the ball either. 29 yards on 15 carries for the Saints. Really, really not good for them. On the flip side, a Steelers team that hadn't been able to run the ball much at all, 217 rushing yards for them. 99 for Najee Harris on 20 carries. 5.0 yards per carry. An almost unreachable number, it seemed like, for him. He also had Kenny Pickett getting into the action here. 51 rushing yards. 4 design runs and 4 scrambles in this one, so it wasn't just scrambling, using his legs a bit there too, which I think is important. And as far as how he performed in the passing game, I mean, he had a 67 grade. It wasn't a great game for him. I think the key is no turnover-worthy plays when you have a quarterback who may be a little bit limited on his upside. Preventing the turnover-worthy plays is important, but he did have 6 sacks. So way too many sacks there. When he's scrambling around, he's moving around a lot. That's normally against another offense that could produce against your defense is normally not something you're going to want to see there. What's interesting is TJ Watt coming back didn't really do a whole lot. I mean, he was in there for 24 of 31 pass rush snaps, 2 pressures for him on there. Alex Highsmith had 2 sacks and 4 pressures, but they actually didn't get that much pressure on Dalton. I mean, he's a hard guy to get pressure on because he gets rid of the ball so quickly, but it was more on the back end. The coverage that was doing the work there. The interception from Levi Wallace, who also scored a touchdown in this game. Cam Sutton played well here. It graded pretty well here. Terrell Edmonds graded pretty well here. So just generally a pretty good defensive end on the back end for the Steelers. But I don't know where this franchise sits going forward, honestly. They're just in a weird spot. Like, how confident are you in Kenny Pickett? How confident are you in the defense, getting up to that maybe top 5-ish sort of level again, which is probably what you need to be successful with this team. You have, Najee Harris and you have the wide receivers, but can they actually leverage those guys to get big plays out of them? Even if George Pickens or someone like that takes a step forward in the future. Can he get a little bit better blocking in the offensive line? They're going to need to rebuild that. Just a lot of questions for a Steelers franchise that is used to being year in, year out in the playoffs. Now we're seeing this year, they're more likely than not, they're out. They're out of the playoffs. And they're in this in-between purgatory type of situation with not going for the full rebuild, which they could have gone for more in this season. Maybe even passed on drafting a quarterback and set themselves up to draft someone next season. But they didn't do that. They wanted to compete. They wanted to get into the playoffs, and now they're in a kind of a sticky spot going forward. The Saints need to blow it up probably eventually, but they're just holding on forever to not do so. They had some excuse this year with how bad the NFC South was and the ability to maybe get into the mix there, but that's looking very, very unlikely now for them at this point. All right, let's continue on in the morning, and hey, you win games, and the Giants are winning games, even if it is against the Houston Texans.
Rush coming. Forced to throw. Coming back for it. Breaking a tackle. Slayton. Catch and run. Down the sideline. Slayton. Twirling. Touchdown.
Huge
Darius
touchdown
Slayton
there
goes the distance.
for Darius
54 yards.
64 yards, as Ian Eagle tells us. Ian Eagle, low-key, I think, the best announcer in the game. I think he's going to take over for Jim Nantz whenever Jim Nantz, steps down. I heard that he's going to take over for golf already. Maybe the NFL eventually too, although it's hard to turn down those paychecks, I assume, for Jim Nantz right now. But Ian Eagle, my favorite guy in the game. On this game, the second, he's in the number 2 crew for CBS on this game because, hey, it's the New York Giants, New York Football Giants. Everyone wants to see what the Giants are going to do. Again, it wasn't pretty. Daniel Jones, fewer than 200 passing yards, did average 11.6 yards per attempt, largely because of that one huge play from Darius Slayton. It was really the running game. What we saw here, Saquon Barkley, 152 yards on 35 carries, just over and over and over again, pounding the ball there with the running game. And for the Texans, they were actually running the ball pretty well themselves, 94 yards on 17 carries for Dameon Pierce, but he had a killer fumble inside the 10-yard line, which, maybe it was inside the 20. I don't think it was inside the 10, but inside the 20-yard line, which sealed it for them. The Texans, you're just marching in. You're just positioning yourself. You're marching in. You're hoping to get that number 1 pick. Again, we have Detroit winning games, back-to-back games, putting them a little bit higher up there. And let's go ahead and look at the race to the bottom here. So the Texans 1-7-1. Raiders 2-7. We haven't got to them yet in the results today, but man, the Raiders are like in it for potentially getting the number 1 pick. I mean, they might move on from Carr anyway, but wow, they really look like they're going to be in a situation to get a big-time quarterback after this season at 2-7 right now. Jags 3-7. I know the Jags said they just love number 1 picks, I guess. They're getting pretty close here. And then, so the Jags are 3-7. The Bears, the Saints, and the Panthers are all 3-7. Those teams, winning games when probably they shouldn't be winning games. So they're all kind of in the mix too, but it's really the Texans who are in the driver's seat here going forward for them as to get that number 1 pick and probably move on from Davis Mills. It's interesting they gave him the chance this year, but hey, He's just not going to be able to do it. The Giants, on the other hand, they are fifth. If the playoffs started today, they would be fifth. They move up a spot, 7-2. They're fifth in the. They're fifth. They're behind the Bucs because the Bucs and the Seahawks. They have better records than the Bucs and the Seahawks, but they would still be fifth in the seeding because those guys would be the division champs, and the Giants are behind the Eagles. But 1.5 games behind the Eagles right now. If the Eagles lose tonight, which is unlikely, but if they lose tonight against Washington, Giants are in the mix. Giants are in the mix to potentially win the division, but not exactly like an impressive game here. They've had the second easiest schedule year to date. They're going to have the 10th hardest schedule going forward, so they're going to have a little bit of difficulty there. But hey, 85-90% chance for them to make the playoffs in this one, and good to see Saquon Barkley continuing to play well, play strong in this game. Not a whole lot else, though, honestly, to say about this one. Let's throw up the number of the game here, 19.5. That was the pass rate under expectation for the Giants. Again, they just didn't need to pass the ball, didn't pass the ball. 34.3 drop back rate in this game. Were not challenged at all. They win 24-16, so 8-point victory. Seemed bigger than that, though, in some ways. They cover, which I think I had them also as one of my picks, so props to me. 41.5 total on this one. Pretty ugly total. Adjusted score, 24-18. So pretty well aligned with what the actual score was in this game. All right, let's close off the morning slate. Let's get out of here. Let's bathe ourselves after these last couple of games here. And there's one game that's going to leave with a really bad taste in the mouth of all Broncos fans here. Broncos country, let's ride, is in disarray after this one. Again, Russell Wilson cannot come up with the plays when they need it, and the Denver Broncos end up losing in Tennessee.
4th and 8. Wilson throws on the run, and it is intercepted by Terrence Mitchell. He takes a knee, and that will do it.
Yes, that one will do it. They had some chance there, I guess, at the end. It's kind of shocking that they had a chance there at the end of the game, despite playing so poorly in this one. And I don't know, man. I don't know what to do with Russell Wilson and how we view him as a quarterback. I'm going to put him up here. He'll be our part of our number of the game, 5, and that's the yards per drop back for Russell Wilson in this game. He had 286 yards passing, so, optically you might think, oh, he did okay. That's a good game for him. But 42 attempts, so a lot of attempts there, not being efficient, plus 6 sacks for 38 yards in this game, which really kills drives. He's the sack master his entire career. He's in the top 5 for expected points lost this season, taking sacks, and it's just... he's giving you like the downside of what he had done in the past. The sacks, not seeing the ball well over the middle of the field, making those sort of plays there. And it just not giving you the big upside plays, whether it's the scrambles or the long passes. You're just not getting that side of things from Russell Wilson. I mean, we had him graded at a 47 passing grade in this game, 3 turnover-worthy plays. And it's just been such a huge fall. Like, is this it for Russell Wilson after that contract is being signed? I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. I still think there's a chance that he comes back, but let's look at the last 3 years. Are we talking about a precipitous fall for any particular player? Let's look at a passing grade for Russell Wilson in the last 3 years. 2020. And this is a game, remember 2020, the second half of the season, he stunk. In the first half of the season, he was really, really good. Actually, you know what? Let's go all the way back to 2019 for Russell Wilson, looking at his stats. So let's go all the way back to 2019. 2019, 90.8 passing grade, top grade in the NFL. 2020, down slightly, 88.6. But again, what's masked as part of that is he was well above 90 in the first half of the season, under 80 in the second half of the season. 2021, last year, 70.7 passing grade, and this season, 58.3. I mean, that's bad. he is down near the bottom in efficiency, the bottom in passing. And each week, I keep on saying to myself, oh, he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. I mean, he's going to make the Hall of Fame. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He was number one in, passing grade just a few years ago. He's getting older at 33, but he's not, ancient or anything. He's nowhere close to as old as a lot of these other quarterbacks. It might affect his scrambling, and I know that's been something to look at, but you look at guys like Doug Flutie, who scrambled really well later on in his career, kind of maintained that. Go all the way back to Fran Tarkenton. He did really well with that sort of playing style. There have been other guys, smaller quarterbacks, who still maintained being able to scramble and be effective there. So, would it be that much worse for Russell Wilson than some of these other guys? I don't know. But, I don't know. We're almost getting a capitulation point on here, where I've still been viewing him as someone we should expect eventually top half sort of quarterback performance from. But maybe it is just broken. And maybe there's only a reset at the end of this season that can put him back into position to recapture the top 10-ish sort of quarterback performance, or maybe even a reset at the end of the season is not going to be enough. And this is just a total meltdown for this Denver Broncos franchise, which is now under the weight of that new contract that they signed there. Particulars for the game: Tennessee, 2.5-point favorites. They win 17-10. Again, not exactly impressive on the offensive side of the ball. Adjusted score, 22-17, so a little bit higher for both teams. Tennessee. Tannehill didn't really do much in this game, although he was back at least, which gives him a chance, I guess, for victory. He also had 2 turnover-worthy plays in this. 255 yards passing, 19 of 36. They had some trickery and a flea flicker, which ended up getting a big catch to Nick Westbrook-Akine. And, their receiver core is still just a mess. They got Treylon Burks back. He actually ran 29 of 38 routes. Could end up doing something in fantasy going forward. Let's hope, but they just don't pass the ball a lot on this team. 6 targets, 3 catches, 24 yards. Westbrook-Akine, 119 yards, really the only one doing anything. And, yeah, other than that, not a lot going on here for the Titans. Jerry Jeudy went down with, I guess they're hoping it's a low ankle sprain very early in this game. I think it was his first target that he went down on. He only ran 1 route, it says here. So, yeah, it must have been the first play of the game. We'll see if he's out going forward. Now that no one else was doing a whole lot here, Jalen Virgil with a big touchdown catch on a blown coverage there. And if that's really kind of the only way that they're generating some offense is by getting some of these blown coverages. And then in the running game, they're not really running the ball too effectively either, although the Titans defense has been playing a lot better. So we got to give them some credit as far as that's concerned. And the Titans, not playing well, but 95% chance to make the playoffs, 90% chance to win the division now with all the struggles that are going on with the rest of the AFC South. Maybe the Colts can get something together there, but not a lot of competition there. And the Titans are looking pretty good on just, stay healthy, get things together, get Treylon Burks a little bit more involved, make sure Derrick Henry doesn't get injured. And you're just going for the playoffs at this point if you're Tennessee. All right, let's go to the big game of the afternoon. Dallas, Green Bay, where the Packers come away with the victory at home.
On the fake, Rodgers floating, caught, touchdown, Watson again. He's got the trifecta.
Yes, he's got the trifecta. They're about to say there. Kevin Burkhardt and Greg Olsen on the call. The number one Fox team, now that Aikman and Buck have flown over to ESPN and Monday Night Football. 2 marquee franchises, 2 brand names. Packers mightily struggling, though, going into this one. They end up winning in overtime. And I highlighted Christian Watson on this one because he had 3 touchdowns, 4 catches for 107 yards. He had some ugly stuff going on, especially early in this game. Some head-scratching stuff, some drops. 2 drops in this game. Another one where was just an absolute dime that Aaron Rodgers threw down the sideline, and Watson seemed like he wasn't even paying attention until the last second. He looks up and it hits him in the hands, right what would have been a touchdown. And then you had the obligatory Aaron Rodgers reaction shot where he's looking around like, what the hell am I doing? Why do I have to deal with this? But he eventually ended up, he's an explosive player. Maybe he can get things together. Maybe he's just a little bit, immature, needs a little bit more seasoning. Romeo Doubs is out. They're going to need something. Alan Lazard's not that guy. You're not that guy. He's not going to make it forward. Sammy Watkins is not going to be that guy. They're going to need something from somebody. So maybe Watson could be the guy to start to get it going in this game. Another good game from Aaron Rodgers. So at least Rodgers has been grading well in a handful of games here. I know he hasn't had the most efficiency necessarily, but only threw the ball 20 times in this game, but 11 yards per attempt, a couple of big-time throws in this one, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, took a couple sacks, but nothing that big. And that kind of leads us into the number of the game on this one for what I think is important for the Packers going forward, and that was 84.3, and that's the pass blocking grade for the Packers in this game. It was the best of the season for them, and they were facing the highest graded pass rush in the NFL for the Dallas Cowboys. So they had their best pass blocking grade against the highest level of competition. That's good for them. Elgin Jenkins it was rough for him. He gave up 3 pressures. He gave up a sack. Might have given up both sacks, actually, on that one. But the rest of the line coming together. Bakhtiari starting to look better, starting to gel. This has been like a perennial top 5-ish sort of offensive line, which has really helped Rodgers in the way that he likes to play. They can get back to that. Maybe they got a good chance of being able to turn some things around in this one. The particulars. Dallas was a 3.5-point favorite on the road against Green Bay. Green Bay wins by 3 points, 31-28. The adjusted score, 26-24. Green Bay, I mean, it did go to overtime, so that gives them a little bit of a boost as far as their actual score versus the adjusted scores in this one. More numbers. Let's look at the Cowboys side of things. I mean, Prescott was okay, but 2 interceptions, only 1 turnover-worthy play, so a little bit unlucky there. 5.8 yards per attempt. Not enough juice in the passing game there. CeeDee Lamb, 150 yards receiving, though. So he had a big game there, but just no one else was there. I mean, 265 total passing yards, 150 to CeeDee Lamb. Only 35 for Gallup, 54 for Dalton Schultz, 13 for Tony Pollard. No one else really contributed anything. So they need a little bit more contribution outside of CeeDee Lamb. That was one of the weaknesses and the fragility of this team, was that they weren't necessarily going to have that. And Tony Pollard came to play. I mean, 114 yards on 22 carries. Still wasn't enough. Still wasn't enough to win this when the Packers offense was so dominant. The 200 yards rushing, 131 for Aaron Jones, and another 65 for A.J. Dillon. Both of them over 5 yards per carry. That will get it done. And something that the Packers, that's just going to be their formula going forward, even if they have to squeak out victories because their defense is not playing as well as you would like. Defense is still not coming around here. Maybe there's even a pass interference could have been called on Jair Alexander, which would have caused them to lose this game. So they're going to need to ball control and have Aaron Rodgers play efficiently. I don't know. I'm still pretty down on the Packers' chances going forward, but at least they got a chance here. I mean, we have about a 25% chance to make the playoffs. It's gone up quite a bit. The division is obviously out of reach at this point with the Vikings continuing to win. But maybe they can sneak in one of these last wild card spots. They're not that far out, believe it or not. If you have the ranking, top 7 teams, top 7 seeds get in to the playoffs. They're at 9th right now at 4-6. They're at 9th. They're behind the Commanders, who are 4-5. So they're really going to be competing with either the Giants, the Cowboys, 49ers, or the Seahawks, one of those sorts of teams. So the 49ers are 5-4, and the rest of the teams have 6 victories. I don't know. I mean, I think the 49ers are just probably just a way better team at this point, but the Packers have some chance. They have some chance of being able to get in. Let's look at their schedule going forward, because I think that's really going to determine whether or not they can get in. And they have the Titans, so that's very winnable. The Eagles, that'll be a test at the Eagles. At the Bears, the Bears are, been a little sneaky okay here. A very late bye for them, a Week 14 bye for the Packers. Then the Rams, Dolphins, Vikings, Lions. Yeah, there's some winnable games in there, especially with the Rams falling apart. Definitely some winnable games for them, so they have a chance going forward. Over to what's going on with the Cowboys. Of course, had that great stretch with Cooper Rush. Able to win games. Before this, they put themselves in a pretty good position. There's still a 90% chance to make the playoffs, even though they're probably not going to win the division at this point, even at 6-2, unless the Eagles fall apart going forward. But not the worst loss for them, I think. Just got to tighten things up a little bit defensively on the back end, at least, against the run, because that could end up being a vulnerability. And we're talking about the Eagles, of course, as being the other team in the division and in the conference that you're going to have to deal with. You can't have those struggles against the run against that team. All right, the rest of the afternoon action here. Let's go to the Jeff Saturday and the Colts and Matt Ryan. Maybe Jeff Saturday was worth it, bringing in Jeff Saturday, just if you can get Matt Ryan back in the lineup. And as I mentioned before, the Raiders, second worst record in the NFL now after this loss to the Indianapolis Colts.
100-yard game. Second down. So there's a big hole. He's off to the races. Chased by Harmon. Chased by Webb. And you can kiss him goodbye. Touchdown, Colts.
There you go. Jonathan Taylor also healthy again. Yeah, Jeff Saturday walking right in is able to bring back Matt Ryan, who had a decent game. He's able to get a healthy Jonathan Taylor. He's able to face a Raiders team, which can find any way to lose every single week. Pretty good setup there for Saturday in this one. Leads us into our number of the game, 207 rushing yards for the Colts in this one, including 147 yards on 22 carries for Jonathan Taylor. Even Matt Ryan, of all people, getting into the mix, using his legs in this one. Matt Ryan had 38 yards rushing, which is pretty crazy on this one. It had a long run in this one for a scramble that ended up being pretty meaningful, actually, because he converted 2 first downs also during this game. Good game for Coaches Don't Matter Twitter and analysis, which is kind of, I call myself a part of this. For as ridiculous as you might think the Jeff Saturday hire is, we saw a lot of stuff hemming and hawing about it, the disrespect to everyone. I kind of agree that it's pretty disrespectful. We saw Bill Cowher on the pregame show saying is, like the most disrespectful thing in the history of the NFL or something to that effect. But what I think this highlights, and this is probably something I believed, although I'm not in an NFL locker room, I'm not, behind the scenes on these games, so I don't really know what's going on. But when they talked about like what these coaches would do, I'm trying to think of who it was. Maybe it was Chris Long. It was someone who was talking about their coach would see their kids once a week on Friday afternoon and like take them out for ice cream or something, and then immediately go back into the office. So they don't see their kids. They're never at home Monday through Thursday. Friday, they're doing some sort of practicing, installation, coaching in the morning. See their kids once, go back into the office on Friday, in the office all day Saturday. They travel, and then, game. And then after the game, if it's a home game, they would see the kids a second time during the week, get a little extra. 2 times the amount of time with your family there, and then go immediately back to the office on Sunday. I mean, is that really necessary? Like, really? Like, what sort of edge are we actually getting off of the 103rd hour that you're spending in the office versus the 102nd hour that you're spending in the office? I don't know. Can we just like hire some more people and do it well here? So in some ways, as much as I think it's kind of a clown show with bringing in Jeff Saturday and all that stuff there, I'm actually for it a little bit if it proves the point that maybe these guys don't need to be working so hard. Maybe we need to realize there are things that are outside of our control, like whether or not your running back is injured and can come back. There's variance. We can't control everything. You can't diagram everything. If you spend 1 million hours coaching during the week, if you had infinite amount of time to prepare, you're still going to lose games when you don't have the talent and when the luck goes against you in a particular game. Maybe we can take this. Maybe we can take this away from the Jeff Saturday situation, and then coaches can live a happier, healthier lives going forward and just realize, smell the roses a little bit, guys. Okay, particulars for this game. Vegas was a 4-point favorite, 41 total, very low total. Ends up going over there, 25-20. Indianapolis, adjusted score 27-20. Probably the end for Derek Carr, as I mentioned earlier. They're going to be in position to get a quarterback. I think there are a handful of teams that might think we have everyone but the quarterback going forward, depending upon how things play out for the rest of the season. I know the Jets could be someone who falls into that category. Let's see, what other teams out here could be looking for a quarterback? Because we're also going to see Garoppolo maybe out there. Jared Goff, maybe another guy who's available for some teams. So who are the teams who might say, oh, all we need is a quarterback and we can start to make the playoffs? Actually, maybe there aren't that many. None of them looking around at it. I don't know, the Falcons, if they played themselves out of a quarterback pick at this draft, maybe they'll want to grab someone. Commanders, they'll probably just bring in a different quarterback again. So maybe they'd be someone interested in someone like Derek Carr in this game. I mean, the Giants, depending upon how Daniel Jones plays, I don't know. Could they be interested? They probably should be thinking about something. Again, I mentioned the Jets, the Titans. If they can get out of that Tannehill contract, maybe they'll try to downgrade the cost. Tannehill has a $35 million cap hit this year. The Saints, they're always looking to bring someone in. That's another one that could potentially fall into that. So we could see some movement in the quarterback position, and Derek Carr would be right up there at the top of the list with someone who has a pretty good reputation. I don't think it's been awful this year or anything. It's just the team is falling apart. And Josh McDaniels, I think he's going to survive. I think he'll survive here. Although there's a chance for a lot of first-year coaches to potentially get fired this year. I don't put him in the same category as someone like Nathaniel Hackett going forward, because they can kind of sell the team on, hey, we're going to draft a rookie quarterback. Let me develop him. A lot of bad luck this season. Maybe the ownership will buy that sort of angle on it. Give me another year. Derek Carr is out the door, all that sort of stuff. I can see that playing out that way for the Raiders next season. Playoff picture in this one. Actually, I lost my power rankings page. So the playoff picture for the Colts, they are 20% chance to make the playoffs. So, hey, still in there. Maybe a bit higher if we say that Matt Ryan's going to continue to start, because Tennessee is not exactly looking like world beaters right now at this moment. All right, let's get through the last late game and then the Sunday night game. So first we'll go to the backup battle between John Wolford and Colt McCoy in LA.
A little more action today, so good to see him get that reception.
Oh, this pass picked off. Yes, he's playing this afternoon. Buda Baker across midfield, inside the 40, down to the 30. Finally tackled by Henderson at the 25-yard line.
Yeah, not a good game for John Wolford coming in here. That brings us into our number of the game, 48.8. That was the pressure rate the Cardinals defense was able to get on Wolford. Was able to get mistakes for that. And look at the particulars of the game. I don't want to spend too much time on this one since it was a backup quarterback battle. The Rams were still 3-point favorites in this one, although only a 38.5 total. 27-17 Arizona, Colt McCoy coming through here. 22-19 Arizona, the adjusted score. So a little bit more narrow than what the actual score was on this one. I'm just going to go straight into the ramifications here rather than worry about what happened in this game, because we're not going to take a whole lot from this game other than maybe the Rams defense. What's going on, guys? Colt McCoy. Colt McCoy's a pretty decent backup, but still. Rams down under 10% chance to make the playoffs at this point. it's looking pretty bad for the Rams at 3-5 now. I mean, the Seahawks did lose, so maybe there's some chance in there, but this was kind of a fork game. Like you're going to stick a fork in whoever was going to lose this game. So I think the Rams are probably forked after this one. Cardinals were close to being forked, but we still have them at a 20% chance to make the playoffs right now. So not great, but significantly better. And at least they come through and, not that different. Obviously, same exact record, so not a big difference there, but probably hanging on a little bit better because they have a little bit easier schedule going forward and they have this tiebreaker, or they have this win now against the Rams, but not a whole lot to take from this game. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. And let's just go ahead and go to Sunday Night Football to round out everything here. The Chargers go down. Jimmy Garoppolo again. Jimmy G truthers unite. Gets the rushing touchdown, and, honestly, lets the defense do most of the work.
No timeouts, 53 seconds, need a touchdown. Sideline shot, and ball is Hufanga picking it off. And run out of bounds at the 42-yard line.
Yes. Hufanga with the interception to end the game there. They stop the Chargers on a 4th and 3 inside their own 10-yard line. 15-yard line, I don't know where it was. It was pretty close up, though. Before that, the defense is the story of the game. That comes to our number of the game, which is 2, and that's the Chargers' offensive success rate was in the 2nd percentile. Doesn't get much worse. 49ers defense starting to chug along here, starting to play along here. I mean, I know the Chargers' offense has been struggling without their receivers. Herbert's been struggling. That's a continued story that we've seen this season, but still, 49ers could have a top 5 defense, and they could have an efficient enough offense to win this. I mean, they only win by 8 points, so it doesn't look that impressive, but they had some very, very long drives in this game. And the adjusted score was a little bit wider at 22-13. I mean, 9 points versus 8 points, not that big of a difference here. They were 7-point favorites, so 7.5-point favorites, so they did not come through in that regard. But I still think they just played well enough offensively to not be worried about what's going on here. I mean, Garoppolo only passed it 28 times, but he had 240 yards, so 8.6 yards per attempt. He's always the yards per attempt king. He only takes 1 sack, which is something that he's always really good at. Herbert graded well in this game because he made some really, really good throws, 3 big-time throws, but only 5.6 yards per attempt. And he also took a couple of sacks where he's just normally not sacked that much, but he dropped back to pass 40 times. So that's going to happen when you drop back to pass 40 times in this one. Good rushing attack for the 49ers. Oh, okay rushing attack. I mean, 157 yards, 41 attempts. So that was probably something that lowered their ceiling offensively. Maybe it could have cost them a little bit. Let's let Jimmy cook a little bit, guys. But Elijah Mitchell was good. 89 yards on 18 carries. Christian McCaffrey, not so great, at least his results here. 2.7 yards per carry, 38 yards on 14 attempts. Rushing touchdown again for Jimmy Garoppolo. Chargers didn't really try or weren't very successful running the ball either. Only 51 yards on 16 attempts. Defensively for the 49ers, 9 pressures for Nick Bosa. And you think about it, like Justin Herbert gets rid of the ball faster than almost anyone. So quickly on this one. A sack, 3 hits, 5 hurries. Again, 9 total pressures. So huge game for Nick Bosa coming through here. Khalil Mack had a couple of pressures, but the Chargers defense just not doing enough. Not doing enough there. And then we go to coverage. Really good coverage game for the 49ers. Fred Warner was the highest graded guy at 85. In the middle, he's always a good coverage guy. Travarius Ward, Funga in there, everyone else, Jimmy Ward, everyone's playing pretty well for this team. So that starts to gel, and moving forward, I think they're going to be a force to reckon with. Missed opportunity for the Chargers if they could have somehow pulled this out, because they would be going to Kansas City next week with an ability to jump and take the lead in the division. Now that's looking much, much more difficult. And Kansas City has a 95% chance to win the division after this, where it would have been pretty close between them and the Chargers. The Chargers down to 4%. Still a 42% chance to make the playoffs, though. So it's not like they have that much that bad of a chance of going forward for the Chargers. But it's really going to be about the next few weeks because Kansas City is going to be tough. They're at home, though, whatever home means for the Chargers. So Kansas City, then the Cardinals, Raiders, Dolphins, Titans. You got to win a lot of those games. You got to beat the Raiders. You got to beat the Cardinals. You got to beat the Titans. That'll give you a great chance of getting in because then you finish the season with the Colts who are the Rams who are and the Denver Broncos who are very So pretty good schedule for the Chargers. I think they can sneak in. They get healthy. They're a team to watch as, a team that could beat anyone in any week as long as that defense can get turned around. Like optically, it doesn't look that bad what happened in this game because they only gave up 22 points. But 65th, 70th percentile success rate for San Francisco in this game. Jimmy was also converting his third downs as he's always doing, 10 of 18 on third or fourth down conversions, adding 8 expected points on those ones. And, they only passed the ball 42% of the time, 12% under expectation for the 49ers. So again, that helped optically make it look like the Chargers defense maybe wasn't as bad as it actually was. For the 49ers, what they're looking at going forward, again, a team that's borderline top 5-ish sort of team, I feel like, in the NFL right now. 60% chance to win the division, despite the fact that as of now, they're still behind the Seahawks. 80% chance to make the playoffs. Looking good for them. Going all in, maybe it'll pay off for them because in the NFC, outside of the Eagles, of course, no one else is really covering themselves in glory and looks that strong this season. All right, everybody, we did it all. We said it all. We got through it all. Tomorrow, late tomorrow, I don't know if I'm going to do it live. I might not do it live. I think probably just going to tape it with Steve Ruiz. We're going to talk quarterbacks. We're going to talk all the controversy around Tua and this sort of stuff. Looking a lot at the young quarterbacks. Which ones should teams be actively thinking about bringing in a first-round pick or someone like that to at least compete with young quarterbacks, and whether some guys are done, like guys like Russell Wilson and others are done, and how we should view them in an upside-down quarterback year. And he also gives opinion on guys like Herbert and others who he's still super high on, despite the fact that he's struggled this season. So we'll talk to Ruiz tomorrow. That'll be in your podcast application Wednesday morning. And then, of course, we'll have the Friday show in the morning. And we're going to try to do another mailbag. So if you have any questions, drop them in the comments here, drop them in the Apple Podcast reviews, or hit me up on Twitter at Kevin Cole PFF with anything that you would like me to answer on Friday. Other than that, thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. And I'll talk to you in a couple days. Thanks.